Beyond the Wild.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. We're excited to bring you a guest that's new to me tonight, somebody who focuses on a subject that's near and dear to my heart, at least primarily according to what I see on his amazing social media feed. And it's somebody that Jason knows. Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really, really good. I'm not gonna go. Yeah, no, I'm doing better than I deserve. I was trying to avoid saying it. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it. Well, our guest today is coming to us from one of my favorite places in Alaska, in Fairbanks, Alaska, and his name is Taylor Thomas Albright. And welcome to the show, Taylor. It's nice to see you in person, on the screen at least.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
So I was alluding to the subject matter. Is your middle name, it should be, Taylor Thomas Ursus Albright.
What?
Ursus, the Latin name for bear.
Oh, yeah, no, you're right. We can go with that.
Yeah, because you have a fantastic feed with covering the species. I mean, I love the spirit bears, the brown bears, polar bears. You've had a lot of tremendous experiences in the field. Is that, I assume, as part of the introduction?
Yeah, no, I've been very fortunate. I've given a lot of time, but I feel like I've received just as much, if not more, than probably my share of exciting things.
Am I wrong to guess that they're your favorite or one of your favorite subjects?
Absolutely, yeah. I initially when you hone your focus more or less onto the wildlife or anything like that, yeah, bears, any like the larger animals, I seem to kind of lean towards. But I don't know. There's that connection. They kind of have the same. There's a lot of similarities with people, I feel, as far as the way they, you can really, if you watch them, you can see their personalities. You can see each one of them. They kind of go about doing their thing. But, it's 10, 20 minutes is one thing. But if you're there for days or weeks or year after year, you can see generations grow up and like, oh, that's so-and-so. Like the relationship there is pretty neat. And the dynamic it's just something that really caught my eye. And I've always been interested in those guys. So.
I feel that. And I have to say, too, I really, we've had a bit of conversation starting today's episode, pre-podcast, and I love your mug, by the way, that you've got. We have dueling mugs today.
Oh,
yeah. Mine's coffee, I promise, at the moment.
Mine's, a little bear mix.
A bear mix. That's cool.
Nice.
Leave a little to the imagination.
Yeah, I got to stay hydrated.
I'm feeling a little bit left out right now. I do not have a cool mug, but
it wasn't planned. It wasn't.
Yeah, I know. I raised mine up, and he was like
wait a minute,
giving me the bear eye down there.
Yeah, it's a virtual bear mug hug.
Yeah.
This is a special one. My daughter, when she was much younger, made this. And
that's actually, yeah, that's more sentimental. Mine's was crafted. I don't know if I should give the location away if anyone else knows where this would be from, but it is one of the national parks.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. You don't have to drink it that way. You can hold it however you like but I love the mug. I really do. And if I saw that mug, it would be in the cupboard. It would. That's super cool. So what's your history, Jason, with Taylor?
Yeah, no. Taylor and I met years ago in Yellowstone. I was actually trying to remember which year it was. Do you remember, Taylor? I was thinking it was probably 2017, 2018.
I think it was either. It might have, because I was trying to associate. I was trying to think if it was the year, and I know she's had cubs since then, but it was the year either of when Rosie had 3
I think so.
or the year right before that, and I can't remember because it was kind of that was a pretty fun couple weeks there, but I didn't know. But I remember it was up that road almost. I believe it was. There was like a black bear she had like a little cinnamon cub, and the thing was just like kind of hanging out in a tree. And I was trying to think of that. I was like, he's gonna ask me. I know it. I gotta come about something. But I want to say that's when it was. But it was around that 2017, 2018 thing.
Yeah, no, we ran into each other up there. We were photographing black bears. It was in the springtime. I remember all that. And regardless, it was 8 years ago. But it's just something where, every now and then you meet somebody in the field and you kind of just connect a little bit through this passion that we share, right? And we kind of hit it off and chatted a bit and got to know him a little bit more, through chatting with each other about what do we do in our careers and so on and so forth. And that time, if I remember right, Taylor, you weren't doing this full time. And we can talk a little bit more about that. I'd love to hear more. I'm sure Mark will get into that, but love to hear a little bit more about your journey, right? How you got to where you are today is of interest to me as well, because we haven't stayed that closely connected to know all the ins and outs and ups and downs and decisions and all that kind of stuff. So, but anyways, yeah, Taylor's just a great guy and somebody that I've been wanting to talk to for quite a while to get him on the podcast, because I've been following along with his adventures and his journey in photography and where he's taken it to. And he has a fairly large following on his Instagram and his socials. And one thing I really liked about Taylor, and I'm not to try to embarrass him at all, but he's the kind of person, I don't know how to explain this. He's the kind of person, and talk about it like he's in the third person here, but he's the kind of person who just kind of does his thing and doesn't really look for any accolades, and he just is out doing it. And he's not doing it the same way everybody else is. I don't think I'm aware of him being on very many tours with, big operators or, things like that. Taylor's the kind of guy, from what I've gathered, and he can speak more to this, that just goes out and figures it out and does it on his own. And he's created a pretty cool following and a really incredible portfolio, and is just out there getting after it. So he's kind of that quiet ninja, if you will, in the photography world, just doing his thing. So anyways, that's a little bit about how I met Taylor and how we got to know each other.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So
I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say our producer puts up the Instagram handle for people that they can, if they're watching YouTube. But if for the audience that's listening to just an audio podcast, it's simply, and makes sense, your name, Taylor Thomas Albright, and it is one heck of an impressive page. Wonderful compositions, great behavior, seasonality, all these species. And Taylor, rightfully so, has well over 100,000 followers on Instagram and a great history there. So out of curiosity, I want to ask about Fairbanks too. It's coming. Where did you get your start in photography? What was the spark that took you into the field in the beginning?
It's been kind of I don't know. Obviously, it seems like every photographer would be like, "Oh, it's a wild ride," or it's been, ups and downs. So for me, it's a lot. I don't want to say weird. There's got to be a better description of that. But I mean, I knew, like, when I was younger, it was always I had that the animals were kind of a big thing for me, like that connection, or that, just seeking out. Like, I was so curious. I loved the idea of, like, seeing a bear in the wild, or seeing, like, a wolf, or even like a fox or anything like that. Or, I mean, it doesn't squirrels it's very interesting to see how they do what they do. And when I was younger, growing up, like, we would go up north. I grew up in Wisconsin, and we'd go up north. That was like the summer, our trip traveling. My mom would bring my brother and I up to my grandparents' house, and they had a lake. And I just lived on the lake. I lived in the water, lived out in the wild, just doing all that kind of, outdoor stuff. And that just kind of was, I guess, the very beginning of me being very interested in that. And then I was always very interested in cameras and taking pictures of video cameras and all that. But I didn't really get, I would say I haven't really committed until after college. I didn't know, I guess growing up, I was, I was really interested in, or I thought I was like, it was very important to me. I wanted to make a lot of money. I wanted to be super rich and this and that. And I was like, I don't know if, never heard of like, oh, a photographer is going to do that. Like it wasn't, I mean, I know it's possible. I know of a few people who are intense with that, but I'm working my way to that, of course. But I didn't know that. So I was really like, oh, I went to school and this, sports and everything like that. But I always was taking pictures. I was very interested. I remember going to Washington, D.C. I had my first, not obviously high-end camera by any means, but my first camera, I thought, I was like, I have more than just a little point and shoot thing. It was like a Canon Rebel G film camera. And I was big into that. I would always go, and I actually went to I think it was like 10 or 11. I went and was learning to develop film. I was really interested in developing process and wanted to have my own little dark room and take pictures and then develop my own things. So when I was always into that, but I basically, the first trip I went was like 8th grade. We did like a class trip, if you will, and they bussed us out to Washington, D.C. And I took like 12 or 13, maybe 14 rolls of film, and it took like 2 months for me to pay for that to get them developed. But again, I always was in college. I was taking pictures and doing video stuff and learning the programs and kind of editing and this and that. So I was always on the side. I was always doing it. I always really wanted to do it. I just didn't know that it would be, a financially acceptable thing, or if I guess I probably never committed to it. Like I never told myself to do it and not something else. Cause I went to, I did sports and then I went to college and I have a degree in finance and management and this business stuff. And I tried to do some banking things and just money wasn't, and again, anyone who's probably would try to either financial part of this conversation probably shouldn't listen, but it's like money it wasn't what made me happy. I didn't care. I just was over that thought. You know what I mean? And after what I was doing when I was working, I was like I don't know if it was a switch that just flipped or what, but I needed to do it. I couldn't not try. You know what I mean? I couldn't not accept trying. So I spent some money and I did some research and I bought into at the time, it was quite a while ago, was the Sony system. Those guys felt like they were building the insides of almost every other camera maker anyway. All the brains and the guts of a lot of the big companies were coming from them, the processors. So when that mirrorless kind of started to come, was like I thought that sounded pretty cool. Like I was like, that makes sense. There was a lot of growing pains with that. But I think once I got that A7R2 that was like the first camera that I was like, I can do. Let me do it. Like, you know what I mean? They had no lenses for wildlife. I mean, they had, so that was like a tough thing, and the batteries were slow and blah, blah, blah. Everyone who doesn't have, who has a Canon or Nikon or whatever else, they're like, yeah, that camera, Sony, yeah, those guys don't know what they're doing. But yeah, I just let it go, and I was like, so that was probably for me, like once I got that, I really wanted to make that transition, or at least try to put myself in position to be able to make a transition from, not like as a young kid growing up and being a photographer the whole time, but, after college and, accepting that I didn't want to be in banking and finance or any, that kind of thing. And again, traveling, I think the more you do it and the more you maybe see, it's just as big of an addiction as anything else.
Definitely.
I mean, if you're not able to do that kind of stuff, I mean, even around the house, like I was super, like it sounds silly, but there's squirrels, and it's like, you start to see that stuff. Just give yourself 30 minutes and you pay attention to that stuff. It really starts to become like a habit or an addiction. Just the other day I went bringing my girlfriend. She left her Nalgene and needed some water. And I was kind of driving around waiting for her to end this meeting. And I found a fox den, and there's 4 or 5 little kids, like little guys pouncing around. And I'm like, haven't been able to go back, but I'm super stoked. And like tomorrow I'm probably going to go over there, and just to find that, I'm like, so, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that kind of, you just have to, I guess once you hit that commitment level of, I'm going to do this, then it started to change the game. And again, I had to really change the process of everything in my life, from what I did to who I was doing it with to, the normal work day. But
Being on a podcast about wildlife, there's so the experiences you had, I mean, if I could summarize this, is that it showed you the lifestyle choices that you wanted, that fed you as a person, encouraged that transition to go for it, right? And I mean, this life is short. The more experience we have, it seems that way. And if that is what feeds you, nothing wrong with banking. There's people that love all aspects of lifestyles, but for somebody who's drawn to outdoors and nature and wildlife versus being in an office situation most of the time, editing aside, folks, it sounds like a great choice. I mean, on board, 100%. That's fantastic that you made that choice and did it for yourself.
Yeah, I would say it was. Again, everything happens seemed to be for a reason. I mean, I can't say that I couldn't tell you 20 years ago or 5 years ago or whatever that I would be what I'm doing. But I mean, I kind of was over the whole banking situations, and my stepdad kind of reached out and was like, hey, they were running an RV dealership in Arizona, southern Arizona, and he was like, if you want to not do that, you can come. We have a position. You can just try this out, and gave me an opportunity to do that. And I kind of took that and ran with it pretty big. And that was kind of really, I guess, when I do something like that, I kind of seem to really kind of full force go ahead with it. And I did that for like really hard for about 7 or 8 years. Like I was like, 15, 16, 17, 18 hours a day for like 6, 7 days a week for like 5. I mean, a lot. It was almost like my mom was like, what do you, like, where are you at? I'm like work still, kind of like, she's like, you're not doing anything other than that. I'm not, that kind of thing. And as that kind of was, I was doing that. So I was like really focused, and I wouldn't have said, I don't say I was burned out at all. I think I just outgrew that as what, the dealership at one point, eventually, like, we got all the kinks out, you know what I mean? I went from like working in the bottom of the warranty department to like the head of operations, and, hiring and firing and, changing procedures and all this and that. I mean, it was pretty much went from every position and restructured it and redid it. And I think that helps, or has helped me, grow in other aspects. But the big thing was, like, I guess the hardest thing was trying to leave that to do the wildlife, because obviously that helped me obtain like a camera and that kind of stuff, without a little bit more expensive items, if you will. But again, at the same time, it was like I would go after work I'd pack Thursday. You know what I mean? You get kind of ready for the weekend. I would leave work at 5:30, and drive to wherever I wanted to go that was somewhat in range. But I would drive through the night, and I'd get there to be able to shoot in the mornings. You know what I mean? So I just 7, 8 hours, sometimes whatever it is, all over from Colorado to California, the Eastern Sahara's up in Utah, and all that. So I'd get there, I'd shoot in the morning, and then I'd hang out and do that. And then on Saturday night, I'd go to sleep, and I'd car camp in my Jeep. I'd set it up, get it dialed in so it was more fairly comfortable. And then, I'd get up Sunday morning and I'd shoot again, and then, or at least look for something. And then I would pretty much drive through the night. I'd get back home at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'd shower and I'd go to work. Wow. And I mean, I did that more times than I safely would probably like to admit. But again, when you start doing it once, you're like, well, I was able to see this, because I couldn't get to any of those locations that were more than 3 or 4 hours away with a realistic amount of time. So it was like, the last place was like 7 or 8 hours or 9 or 10 hours. You know what I mean? And I can't tell you how many times I've been up in Yellowstone, or even in the Tetons. I mean, that's the northern entrance, which is usually when I would like to go, is usually shoulder season or in the winter anyway. It was 18.5-hour drive one way. So, I mean, I would rock that on like a long weekend sometimes. And then, I mean, I obviously wasn't like, I'm probably going to die in like 20 years earlier from never sleeping, but at the same time, it equals out because I think I was awake for that many years anyway.
I love that. There's the equation. I think you guys are kindred spirits. I think Jason has a lot of the similar practice, at least historically, in driving
Yeah, for sure.
marathons to make it work.
Well, I think it speaks to just the passion, right? It just speaks to what you're happy doing and what you want to be and where you want to be. So, yeah, it's I can't say I've made the leap. I still have the corporate job, and I'm okay with that. I enjoy my job, and it allows me to do these things. But there's a lot of ways to approach life, and I'm always excited and pumped for people that make the leap because, and what you said, just to highlight it a little bit more, you were focused on what was making you happy. And I think that says a lot for, I think that's where a lot of people that do this end up. They realize that the money, the fame, the accolades in a corporate environment, whatever it might be, success in the business world, whatever, making the most money, having really fancy cars, all those things ultimately aren't going to make most people happy. And if we're all honest, reality says it's not going to make very many people happy at all. So you found that and went after it. And I always am impressed with people that are willing to make that leap because you said it, maybe you're not making the most money, but you are happy. And, success, in my opinion, isn't measured by money. It's measured by, quality of life. So.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny along the same lines as far as like obviously like whatever, the money aspect of it or this and that. But I think when, like you kind of touch based on a lot of people who either want to quit their job or they want to do something full time, regardless if it's being a photographer or anything else. It was funny because when you do this kind of thing in any aspect of any job or hobby or anything like that, you eventually start running into people who you look up to or you admire or you see on TV or you see in magazines. And as that happened, I was like, and I certain times I could tell you a couple of stories about it where, you're not starstruck, but you should be. And it's like, when that went and that happened, it's like everyone, they're just the same normal Joe as anyone else, so you and I and anyone else. So it's like, this guy's been on the cover of National Geographic magazine and this and all these other places. And it's like, he just likes to hang out and play cribbage and have a drink at the end of the day. Like, and you know what I mean? So it's like, there's nothing special about, I mean, obviously everyone's special in their own way, whatever, but there's nothing that makes this guy or this girl something that I can't do or I can't be, you know what I mean? And that's like, if there's like the money aspect and then I don't believe in myself or I don't believe in that, it's like, that guy's no different. And most of the time, you and I or whatever, whoever might be a better person or might have a little bit more of something than those other people that are making it. But you know what I mean? You kind of have to just believe in yourself and kind of almost have a very short memory when it comes to anything with wildlife, especially like, I mean, I've driven to Yellowstone 18 and a half hours one way for like 2 weeks. And I came back and I literally had maybe 10 pictures taken. It was just, I was very frustrating, but at the same time, it's like, I was probably there and 2 weeks later, I'm doing the same thing.
That's funny. I also remember the time when you did drive all that way and I ran into you and I told you I was trying to get a bison birth. You remember this? I was trying to capture a bison birth and you told me that you.
Oh yeah. No, what's funny is I was just looking at some footage because I've never put any of that together like out there because it's so questionable.
It's raw. Yeah.
But it's like, I swear, it's funny. I literally just went through and put like probably an hour of footage on a folder that I was like, I want to just go through and see if I can like put something. Cause it's that time of year where all that comes together. And I tell you what, it's so moving, but at the same time, it can be pretty raw.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's another word to explain it, but it's like to see that go down and then it just to be like, that thing's running around in half an hour. And it's like, wow, that was just a new life. It was so awesome. But at the same time, it is, I don't know. There has to be like a little disclaimer to say, like, you might not want to watch this.
Yeah, right.
It is something.
It's nature, right? And nature is incredible in so many ways. Even the hard parts to watch, even the the raw moments, if you will, whatever, the predatory moments, there can be very, very difficult to watch, but it's still incredible. It's still part of the natural world. It's still what happens every single day, So, but I remember being very jealous. I was like, ah, man, that's awesome. I was super pumped for you because I was like, you told me you got it all on video, and I was like, yeah, and I just missed it, I think, something like that, of course, which is the story. But anyways, yeah, I still have not, and I go every spring to try to catch it, and I still have not been lucky enough to be there when the moment happens. I've been there right after it's happened. I've been there, you know what I mean, right before it's happened, and camped on them and waited, and just doesn't happen in the daytime. And I think a lot of them are born at night, quite honestly, and so on and so forth. But anyways, it was just cool.
I mean,
that was a crazy story. But
that time, I was literally, I think it was for a solid week, there was nothing. I was like, because there's a couple telltale signs you look for in those bison, the female bison with their tails, and sometimes it's really close with the feet, and the different weird things and like certain bulge things. But I mean, it was a week of just, I was like, I would just pass up every other thing to look for the different herds or females kind of starting to like kind of go on their own or do anything. And I mean, again, a lot of times you'll find that, and if you follow and wait, and they'll go behind a little area where they are out of view, or they'll just go where the ground is so like hilly, if you will. Like they go behind a little 2-foot hill and they lay down. It's like you can't see anything, so it has to be, again, kind of a perfect storm and the perfect angle, because if they're facing the other way, it happens. But it's like, again, if you want to see what really happens,
right,
it's quite a open angle. But it was pretty. Yeah, I don't know. Again, it's funny that you brought that up, because I literally just was looking at some of that footage yesterday.
Yeah, but the point I brought it up is just, you hit it. You drive 18 hours one way and then 2 weeks and come home with 10 images, and then there's the times you do that and it pays off in spades for something really special that not very many people have. So, and the other thing that I picked up from that is, and we've talked about this in the field before, is your willingness to drive past everything else to get that one thing that you're focused on. Because you kind of, in a lot of ways, unless you're just relying on luck, you kind of have to be that way if you really want to capture that one thing. So anyways, I think it's important for people to remember, you drive all that time and spend all that time and nothing comes of it. Then the next time you go, you get some crazy, incredible thing like 25 wolves, in your face for a whole day, so.
There's really, again, it's a lot of those times when it's like, oh, I'm going to pass this up or pass that up. It doesn't always pay off. I mean, I've been like, man, I probably would have been better or smarter or safer or whatever it is to just do that. But again, it's sometimes, and I probably am on the opposite side of, the risk reward thing, where it's like I would more willing to risk certain things at the end of the day, but never safety of the animals or obviously of anyone else or my safety per se. But, it's tough. Like you said, it's just trying to like decide, oh, should I wait around for this many hours or weeks to try to get one thing or to see that weird thing, which is a bison bird. Or just, sometimes there's other animals and other situations, and, just, you never know. And it's always those fun what if kind of, if you don't have fun with the what if conversations, it's not, I mean, you're just going to drive yourself crazy.
Yeah, right. The FOMO is real, though. I'll have to admit that.
Absolutely. I think that's a driving factor of a lot of people, even.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, Mark. Little tangent.
Not at all. No, I'm having fun going through Taylor's feed and of images. So, and I could be incorrect about this, but we all find different paths into photography and wildlife photography. And I have other friends, people that I've got to know who were professionals in different fields at varying ages. Some retire and get into it because they're financially set up or are capable of doing it and footing the bills of the travel and the equipment. And some younger purposefully work for a period of time to try to accumulate enough money to do it. And it sounds like that, well, you got to the point where, that you'd been so successful in your business ventures that there was the opportunity you could make the pivot and follow this dream and do it so well. That's what it sounds like.
I wouldn't go that far as, yeah, there you go. Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as to say that like I've been able to somehow, like, I don't want to use the word retire by any means, but
No, I wasn't
like that. But I mean, I think
I'm not trying to assess the level of your
no,
wealth. That's not neither here nor there on the show. Your wealth is on your experiences.
I'm experience rich, I would say, but
absolutely
pocket poor probably.
One of my best.
I understand. I know. I get what you're saying. I think that's partially fair. I think I did things with like work and jobs to a point, and it got me to a point where I probably had a little bit of a buffer at one point to say, let's do this. And again, I have made certain decisions, sacrifices or not. I don't know. I mean, I know you guys, I know Jason has a family, has a lot of responsibilities that are outside of himself.
Right.
I've had animals, and as much as they've meant and this and that, I don't have children. You know what I mean? So it's not, I think that plays a big role in the decisions I did make too, because I don't know if I would have done what I have done and be what I'm doing now if I had a kid.
Right. Sure. Life choices for sure. Yeah. That's yeah. And the pocket poor bit is not the case here. I know that necessarily. This isn't about money, but as a joke, one of my friends recently said he's never seen the Brinks truck following the hearse to the funeral home. So
Amen.
It's experiences, right? And so on the photography front, then when did you pivot? Are you full-time, like year-round Alaska now? And how many years ago did you find this paradise in North America?
It's funny that, like, I've been coming to Alaska for quite a while, for well over 10 years. What brought me to Alaska was actually my girlfriend. As far as the way she was living here, when I did the big portion of coming up with the wildlife and that, I was living in southern Arizona, which there is wildlife but I mean, it wasn't, I mean, it's
Roadrunners.
Probably 100 degrees right today, and 120. Yuma is like, it's right there with, stoking the fire. It is a hot place. So I don't know exactly if that's like the wildlife capital of the world, but I mean, I did a lot of that. And, I don't know if you need to live in Alaska or the Tetons or you know what I mean? I don't know if you have to. It helps. It does, because then you don't have to do as much driving or flying and this and that. But I would say that, I don't know, the full-time transition, it's kind of I try to narrow it down to less than 2 hour kind of a story, because I just run off with everything. And I actually wrote down the date. So it was, and I don't know if you'll know the date without me saying it, February 28th, 2020 was my last work day. Like my last day of I went full time that day on. And a few days after that, and I had this all planned out like 2 years, and I'm like just sweating it, trying to like come up with a way to tell my stepdad that I'm like, hey, because he was like, I want you to be in line to do something at the dealership big, and I'm like, I'm done, kind of a thing. And I mean, it was that mindset, and I need a purpose. I needed something to drive me. And again, I did so much in all those years with them that, I felt like I outgrew it. I didn't want to be unfair to them, and I didn't want it to me. I would have just sat more or less. I felt, because I needed to grow. I needed to keep evolving and changing, and in order to do that, I don't think that was the place at the time for me. So to be fair, I was like, I needed to do something else. So anyway, that time I did that, and then a couple days later, I headed off to Yellowstone. And I'm like, I'm going to be here. I don't have any limitations anymore. I don't have to come back on the weekend. I can just do whatever I want to do and be there. And I was out in the backcountry. I was thinking it was 20 days or so. I was like, and I would come back and forth occasionally to get fuel or any sort of food. And sometimes I would just stay in my Jeep instead of like backcountry. Or again, I stayed in a hotel one time. I needed a shower eventually. But I came back one time to fuel up, and there was not a massive, but one of those big construction signs with the lights on it on the entrance side of the road, and it says closed. And that was COVID.
Right.
It was when that just came out, and that was like, there's no way they're going to close Yellowstone. So I wasn't too worried about it at the time. Everyone's telling me all the supplies in these stores are running out, and there's no toilet paper. And at the time, everyone was so nervous. I don't think everyone was going out. So, I mean, I'm in national parks, those bathrooms with 45 rolls of toilet paper on those bars. So it's like, I've got all the stuff I need. I have toilet paper here. I'm good to go. And I'm leaving to go get fuel, and I see that sign, and I'm like, what? You know what I mean? And sure enough, like they're like, I talked to the one guy, and so I was, again, middle, like, you're in the middle of something. I got my area I want to be at. I know I kind of got my bearings a little bit to what I want to be shooting. And they're like, I can't let you back in. I'm like, okay, so now I'm, again, 18 and a half hours away from, my house. What do I do? And again, that was a tough start of it. And I basically kind of, went to a few other areas around, but again, businesses are closing now, and it was getting a little bit really like that right before it got really intense. And I went back to eventually like that, the next morning, because there's some other things there. I went back to Yuma, and I was like trying to put my head together what to do. But that was the first experience of me being a full-time photographer, was the COVID. Like, it's like I'm leaving my job, and now COVID hit, and quite a few different businesses and different corporations and all that kind of stuff, they didn't know what was next. They didn't know if there's, what was the play, the end game of this. So no one wanted to sign new contracts. No one wanted to pick up new pieces or be in part of somebody else, or, hey, who are you? I'm not going to, that wasn't a huge thing for me at the time. So I was like, what did I do? Did I just make a really bad decision? And it played out the way it played out. But I mean, it was funny because, not trying to get too far off of that, but, as the COVID kind of progressed and a lot of things went really badly, RV dealerships went really, really good because everyone started buying RVs. They want to get out. Hotels are closed. They can't do, you know what I mean? So all of a sudden, the thing I was doing is doing really good, but I left that. And now no one wants to talk to any new people or do anything. All the businesses and national parks are closed. And I'm like, good start. Like, I mean, what else is
making good decisions, Taylor? Making good decisions. Yeah.
Nobody knew that was coming, right?
No.
Our lifetime has never happened anything like that, anything close. So I can just imagine the questions and turmoil going on for you at the transitioning at that time to a new career.
Yeah. There was quite a few, like, again, that introduction into, what did I get myself into kind of a idea or whatnot. But I mean, another time was, again, you think these places, they wouldn't close them. You know what I mean? I had a hard time with the idea that I wasn't using resources or visitor center and nothing, I mean, I get that they don't want those places to be accessed and open, and I'm okay with that. I was nowhere near any of those things. So it was always tough for me to, to deal with that. It was a struggle. I was like, come on, like, I'm not doing anything by anyone. I just need the land. Like,
right.
Let me just park and I'm there or anything like that. So
yeah, I think a lot of us struggle with that idea that the parks would close, because none of us are really too, like you're saying, we're not too concerned about the access to the facilities and the places where people that would need to be employed would be paying attention to anyways, right? But yeah, I think a lot of us really struggled with that, so I can relate. But
are you still shooting Sony?
I am still shooting Sony. Yeah, honestly, I was close to. It was just beating me in the head to shoot with an adapter and non-native lens. for some reason that just ate at me every night, no matter. And the pictures, again, there was probably no difference. No one could probably tell, but I mean, I just didn't like the non-native, like having another connection. You know what I mean? So it's like, and I was like Tamron and the Sigma Sports and the different, because I mean, there was no length when the Sony mirrorless came out for quite a while. You know what I mean? That was like the thing, and I'm just like, and it did give me extra time, I guess, to save up for bigger lenses anyway. But even when they dropped that 75 to 200, that 2.8, and as an internal zoom, I thought that was my first, just, oh my God, this is the best lens. And I honestly, I still have it, and I use it all the time. I love it. It just, for me, and I don't know, it's probably because it was white, but I felt like it made me feel like you know what I mean? It's a little lens, not a big thing, but it made me feel like, yes, this is so cool. Like I just was even more excited about all of it to do, you know, more photography because of that. But then again, they start
something there, right? You believe
that. Well, I mean, and I mean, I even put adapters. What's that?
Well, you believed it would be as good as it could be. There's something, the quality of the glass. I mean, Sony, not anything about the other third-party ones, because they're great too, but Sony's glass is really well reviewed, for sure.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Those guys make super superior lenses. I mean, everything's so close now. I mean, it was. I think it was just that connection of putting a little something in between the lens and the camera, and being able to just put a camera lens on without having an adapter, that changed it a little bit. But I don't know. To me, that was like, and that's me being me. It has nothing. I mean, I still have one of the Sigma lens. I still have that one, and I've used it. Honestly, it's the only zoom lens I have over 100 or over 200. But I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's, I mean, yes, gear makes a big deal. I mean, it makes a difference. It does. You can't record on an iPhone in high quality and make it or think it's going to look like one of the documentaries you see on TV. It's just, there's not that. You can take great pictures with the phone, but it does make a little bit of a difference with resolution and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. Once I was able to transition to that, it got more excited about it, and you know, everything fall into place, I guess. But I was close to be like, man, I think I need to shoot Canon. I didn't know that. I was like, it's been 5 or 8 or 9, 10 years. And it's like, I need a lens. Like I wanted not only to use a native lens, but I wanted that feeling. It's just to be like, I already have a tiny camera. You know what I mean? It's not, you know, the mirrorless cameras were already looked at like, oh, this isn't a professional. You come out with like this little
Sony,
size of like a disposable camera almost. And now you just attach a huge lens onto it. It still looks ridiculous. But at the same time, it's like, I didn't have the opportunity before. So I don't know. That was one of those things. But again, I'm way off track.
If we could jump back into just some while we have time to get into some wildlife stories. Quick question on your feed. I mean, this phenomenal experience is familiar to me, and do you know Barrett Hedges?
I know the name. I don't know.
Okay. It's such a wonderful thing with these 4 cubs. Very briefly, I only asked because he'd photographed, it looks like these 4 cubs, and my wife wrote the story, and they collaborated on a children's book called Keep Up Katmai. And we had it published by Scholastic, and it looks like those 4 cubs. And so I just wondered if you were in the field with him. But what an experience to have a brown bear sow with 4 cubs of the year. I mean, how thrilling would that be to have that opportunity as a wildlife photographer?
Yeah, there's a lot of luck involved, and being in these locations, you know, gives you that opportunity. So if you're not there, you're never going to have a chance. But that bear, she was very, I don't know. In Katmai, they give, you know, the frequent bears numbers, and sometimes they get a name by other people and this and that. That was one bear where she never stopped moving. She was very, very, I don't know, she was always moving, and she didn't fish. She didn't have the best technique. She would dive off the bank, and she was very fun to watch, but you would be like, she's just moving, a lot of energy, a lot of this for very little catch. And she did have her hands full with that 4. Not to get off subject too much, but I don't know if it was the last time I actually saw Jason, but it might have been one of the last times. I know, but when I ran into him when 399 in the Tetons had her 4 cubs. And a funny thing real quick about that is, again, I was that was the same, like once they finally opened the whole Tetons Yellowstone, and I usually am not in the areas that time of year because June is just, it gets a little busy in certain areas. But basically started off when that kind of whole thing went down. I was in, and I still admit it, but I was in like the northern part of Yellowstone or the southern part of Yellowstone, like on one of those side road things. I was filming baby geese. Like, again, they're doing that fun, cute thing. And my girlfriend was like, hey, she called me or messaged me, I can't remember. She was like, hey, are you photographing that bear with the 4 cubs? And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't know, because I always shut myself off, but I was shut off from like the things. And I didn't completely know that. I knew, 399 would come down, but who knew she would have that? I mean, that wasn't like and I'm like, no, I'm like probably an hour away filming baby geese, doing fun, you know what I mean? I'm like, and she's like, there's a brown bear with 4 cubs. What are you doing? So it was kind of a funny thing, but yeah, I raced obviously over to the area, and I met up with Jason actually there. I don't know if it was the day. I just remember the whole thing went crazy because the first day she was seen, whoever got interviewed, it was published the pretty much the exact location. And I know a lot of locals know those locations, like where to go when she comes down and that. So I knew where she would potentially be. But I mean, they put it in the paper. So anyone who is anyone decided to like make that area their home for the next 2 weeks. So it was quite a scene with those 4 cubs. But it was just a kind of a funny thing. And not that you need to, but if you scrolled through my feed a little bit, there's another set of, again, I know they are very rare, but when we talk about them, I feel like sometimes comes across like, oh, they're more sets of 4. But my first set of 4 cubs that I saw was a bear they called 402. And she was just a beautiful bear. Like, I swear, if the perfect face, full fur. And it was in Katmai. It was actually the same location where that bear was. But this was in like 2018. Yeah, that was when she first, I guess, kind of came down. But when I first saw her, it was pretty, and I don't know if I think I have one on my feed, but I was standing in the rain for like a week. I mean, I couldn't have been more wet. And one of the rangers, and no one's out. You know what I mean? When that happens, the float planes don't come in for the day trips. And I'm kind of on the lower end or the lower platform across the bridge. And one of the rangers kind of comes by with the radio, and no one else is around. I mean, it was just nasty weather. And I'm like, just being out. You know what I mean? You just got to be out to experience any of that stuff. And I heard her radio kind of crackle, and the one maintenance, she said, yeah, there's a sow with 4 cubs just went past and it's coming down the road, which is that like trail kind of, if you've ever been or know Katmai National Park in Brooks area, where you kind of have part of a road is kind of connects to the trailhead and the bridges kind of that get you around the area. And I mean, again, this was the first time I've ever experienced 4 cubs, and it was a long week, and I just grabbed my camera and I just started walking down. I was like, I'm out. Like that was, I was so pumped to have an opportunity to do that. And again, there was no one around. It wasn't, I didn't know what to expect. And I didn't know if I was like, right, like I'm not going to see this. And I'm going down the road, and again, sure enough, as like the hills are kind of, exposing themselves, I saw some first. I saw her, so I stopped, but they were like pretty far back, and I could see there was like 2 or 3 of them, and then I saw there was 4, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And I just moved to the like off the road, like in the woods, and I just didn't know. I was like trying to keep an eye on them, but they were probably over half a mile down the long part of this road, and I'm peeking them, seeing them. They're coming closer, and I'm just like, I gotta do something. I gotta take a picture. I gotta, you know what I mean? So I have like the one tripod and camera with a longer lens. I just set down. I'm in the woods, and it's like super dense. I was like, I don't want to disturb her. I want her to come past. So there's two trees like basically on the left or right of me. You know, I mean, I had no view looking back out, but just a small window. And I'm in the woods, and I'm seeing she's coming closer. It's kind of raining, and I have that 75 to 200, and I'm just like, I'll get something. You know what I mean? And I'm not an ISO shooter. Like, I don't like to push I mean, I do it, but I rather try to watch my settings, or I know where I can push my cameras so I can edit. And I had it, you know, I think I had it at 800 or 1,000. And I know that's not really that much, but I mean, I'm like, you know, I don't want to do that and ruin it with this. And I mean, I'm at like 75, I think. And each side of the camera, I mean, each side of the frame, there's a tree on each side. And she's walking by, and I'm like, okay, I'm okay. And I just like took probably 8 pictures as they're going. And I don't know if you could probably find one on my feed, and I don't know. It's 2 cubs, the mom, 2 cubs, and they're all looking right at me. And it's the rain slowed down a little bit, so it's like that.
Yeah.
And there's no crop. And when I took it, I'm like,
perfect framing.
I didn't know they were looking, but it was such a fun experience. Not that, you know, you have to be by yourself, but at the same time, it made it like, you know, I'm just in the rain. I'm very uncomfortable. Like, I mean, waterproof gear only lasts for so long. I mean, you know, and you walk through trees and tall brush, like that stuff rubs against your pants, and it just makes it worse. So it's like, you know, you're out there, and I'm like, come on, I got to get something. This week's been a little slow, and that happened. And I saw that I was like, after she went past, and I kind of let her go down to that river. And then that picture of her standing up with the cubs around her, I was back on there's a platform kind of down there, and I got to that, and then she came back around, and I was like, okay. And I didn't, you know, I mean, then some people started to know. I think that ranger went back to like the lodge or something, and probably word spread fairly quickly that was 402, and she came with those 4 cubs. But being able to get that one picture, and I have a couple of them like where she's coming down the road, and you can see like 1 or 2 on the side, but it's very, very minimal. But it's a neat picture, but it's not the 4 cubs and her. But I mean, it was just a really unique situation, especially for that area, because a lot of times it has grown in popularity and getting busy. But it was nice to, like, you know, have that moment with her and those cubs, and see, and, you know, and again, you saw with the other bear, that mom, she didn't stop moving around. She was crazy all over the place, just very uncomfortable with having to feed 4 cubs. And she wasn't by anyone. There was no bears really by her other than her cubs most of the time. But it was just a very calm moment, quiet, the rain and this and that.
You had it to yourself too.
It's always, you just never know.
It's that is one of those career images too, right? One of those. It's so perfect.
That, and I don't know.
The type 2 fun, you're uncomfortable.
Yeah. All the things, all the elements add up to the special memory and image. Yeah.
And the funny thing about that image is I haven't ever sold that image. Like, that's not on my website. I don't know why. I think probably the only, I mean, it's on there. I think you can see it, but I don't know. I've never put it out to be like available. That's like my, like, Easter egg I'm like holding on to. I'm hoping that something, like, I was like, well, maybe if my career really picked up and like I'd have, you know, I'd be super popular and this and that, then I could have these images. I could be like, oh, I'm going to release this one now that I never did. Yeah. And I thought about that for other images, and obviously I have my website and people can buy certain things, but that is pretty much the only one that I've ever really, like, it's been this long, I might as well just not kind of. Not that anyone would ever want it, or I don't know, but
it would be so popular. It's an incredible image. You knock on the right doors with that, they will open. It's it's a career image. I mean, over the years, we're lucky to get a few of those a year, right? And
absolutely. I again, even when there's 2 or 3 cubs, it's like you want them to you want a moment. I mean, you want them to be bears and do their fun things and show their personality, but it's nice when there's that family portrait or that, something that you can see their faces and you can just get one shot of them being together, and then they can do all their fun stuff. And it takes the magic to have.
The stars
I mean, it's basically like having, I don't have children, but I know that it would be that and more to have, hey, our 3 kids or 2 kids to everyone smile and have that Christmas photo.
Right.
That's, while there's candy floating around and brand new toys and presents, that's having a photographer photograph a bear with her cubs and they're all smiling.
A great metaphor. That's cool.
Wow. Taylor, I hate to do this. We gotta cut it short a little bit here, but we didn't get a chance to mention all the amazing conservation things you're into, and your polar bear magnets. I mean, we could go on, and I think we'll definitely make sure JG gets those up and posted on as part of the episode. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, I'd love to.
I think we ought to have you on again so we can get into more of your stories and get into the conservation things, because I know that's important to you, and you're very, very active in those things.
So. A couple of those, the last couple, that 100 for the Oceans was one, and then that Remembering Bears, they're a really great foundation as well.
Right.
And had the opportunity to have some of my images kind of showcased in those as well. And it's just a super neat thing to connect with a lot of those people and a lot of those photographers that you grew up seeing their images. And again, once you meet everyone, it's just, everyone's just a normal Joe. It's it's a nice, fun atmosphere. Everyone's kind of pushing for the same thing. So it makes the conversation really easy, and it makes it another fun activity, if you will, or another, thing. Everyone's fighting for the same, goal, if you will.
Right. No, it's incredible. Well, and I'm super pumped for you and all your success, buddy. Really am. Yeah.
I feel, could we make Taylor the first part 1 and part 2 for Beyond the Wild?
I think we should, seriously.
Because
I know there's a ton of stories, and I'd love to talk way more about the remembering wildlife, the ocean, and all that stuff. So
I'm sure I tend to run on with that. I almost need to make bullet points of stay on topic. I hit, you know what I mean? Because I kind of would jump around quite a bit when it's because again, the wildlife stories where it's, one thing's happening, there's usually, a dozen other things like that, the geese, and then 399. It's oh, I saw Jason there, and that's when we were talking to all these other people, and it just turns into a whole run around of everything. But I appreciate you guys having me, and I'd love to chat more about all the other fun things and different projects. And again, I should have had a big bunch of polar bear magnets around here that we were making and trying to do that, but maybe
we'll help get the word out on that for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what makes a great storyteller, are the layers. It's the whole experience. It's not just, here's the picture. So you've been a fantastic guest. I've enjoyed the humor trying to get this going. And
yeah, me too.
I'd love to hear more, because I feel honestly in this case and not that we just kind of scratched the surface. I'd love to hear your favorite polar bear experience, and some of your, we got that nugget at the end with the 4 cubs and that picture that you're that golden egg you're hanging on to that you should let the world enjoy more. But there's got to be so much more. And as Jason pointed out, your conservation efforts and philosophies that way, it'd be wonderful to get into. So if you honor us with your company again, we'd love to have you on as a part 2, and that way we could feel like, at least I feel like we complete the conversation.
Yeah.
I feel a little bad. I feel like I really didn't say much. It's kind of was a quick
Oh
You know,
no.
I mean, as far as, like, obviously I said a bunch in the stories, but we didn't really touch base. I kind of rushed through quite a few things, and there's a little bit more to each of that, and obviously no conservation talk, no, I don't know. I felt like we talked about 2 or 3 stories and a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Yeah. We definitely
But
need to do a
yeah,
part.
again, if time allows it, I mean, I'd love to jump back in and we can kind of get back going with it.
Yeah, let's do it for sure.
Yeah, I think you're a kindred spirit, and would love to have you on. An hour wasn't enough, and it's kind of our window for our audience, what they're used to. But this should go on much more, and I'd love to hear more about your career and your experiences and your philosophies and your what's going forward too. So let's leave a cliffhanger for the audience
Yeah,
to turn back
I
in for Taylor.
Yeah, we
Living
got all
year
kinds of
round in
stories.
Fairbanks, I have questions. I mean, it's one of the best places on the planet for the aurora borealis and just the
yeah.
lifestyle. Spirit bears, your highlight
I was gonna
reels.
say this big Spirit Fair stuff we just went to up. Not well, this couple of times I've been up there. Those guys that's such a great community. Again, those people are. Oh, I love Marvin and Tim and those guys who've been, gracious enough to let us get into that. And again, the guys in the polar bear thing and out in Canada, I
Absolutely.
pretty remarkable stuff. And again, I love to share a lot of that with you guys. And
Well,
if
we
it's
look
time,
forward to it. Let's set up another photographer date.
looking forward to it.
So, and just quickly as we wrap up, your website. Please tell the audience that so they can see more of your work other than just the great media page.
I tried to, as nicely as I could, keep everything, tailored, if you will, to
Perfect.
Taylor Thomas Albright. Yeah, I mean, my social media stuff, my website, it's all www.taylorthomasalbright.com. My social media handles for most are Taylor Thomas Albright. I'm trying to push a few little YouTube things out. I've had quite a few in the works. Most of it, Instagram and Facebook, and a little bit of the other. But I've been trying to put procrastinating behind me a little bit with editing videos and doing video projects that I've kind of been trying to do myself. So the longer form things really interest me. Haven't really put too many of them out there. I just did one fun little Katmai one recently, but yeah, that's kind of, I guess, another ongoing project as well. But yeah, Taylor Thomas Albright look that up, and hopefully you don't see too much of Jonathan Taylor Thomas or other Taylor Thomas people that always come up when you hear that.
They'll find you, and we'll have it on our website too, beyondthewildpodcast.com, for our listeners that are used to that. And watch on YouTube, of course, as always. And Taylor, it's been a pleasure to meet you. I hope to meet you in person in the field one of these days, months or years, sooner the better. But I'm looking forward to part 2. Jason, this has been fun. What a fabulous guest, and I love your work. Your content's spectacular. So looking forward to hearing more about that as well. So thanks for sharing. Thanks for being on. And everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thank you to our sponsors, pictureline.com and Canon USA. And we will see you folks all again soon. Until next time or next week.
And that's a wrap for another episode of Beyond the Wild Podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors, pictureline.com, your online source for everything photography, and Canon USA.